My name is Johnny Pate, and I'm a proud member of the Chickasaw and Choctaw Nation. So Yatehe, Halito, and Chukuma. It's all good. And a horn frog. Go Frogs. Playing Baylor. Number 2 tomorrow, and then Kansas, number 1 on Wednesday. I was born in Alamogordo, New Mexico, White Sands, and moved to the Metroplex when I was about 4 with 2 sisters, parents. And my mom went back to school when I was about 4, so that's when I started art school. And when I was about 5, I knew I was going to be an artist. But I thought I was going to play for the Dallas Cowboys too. But I kept being an artist, and then I got where I didn't like football, and I got really good at all other sports. And I was really good at football, I just didn't like hitting my head all the time. So I got really good at basketball, and high school, I was in this program called VICA, Vocational Industrial Clubs of America. Did you do that too? Yeah. So, you would learn a trade. So in high school, I would go the first 4 hours to art. I'd roll in there and airbrush, learn how to paint, do everything. I was a really good drawer, and I liked doing that. And that kind of led me on that path. And I had a bizarre background for most people because I was usually the only Indian or, native in every school I went to. In the summer times, I would spend on the reservation either the Hopi or the Apache or Navajo, and it was fun. My sister didn't like it, hunting snakes and fishing and that kind of thing, but it was a really fun, superstar parents. My idols were my uncles and aunts, and and they would take me to these different meetings. My uncle went out there in the 60s for the Peace Corps, and he ended up working for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and then he took over for the superintendent of all the tribes. So we would get our own private cliff dwellings. We would go look land that nobody ever had been to, Bigfoot tracks, all that kind of cool stuff. So I had that, and then I'd come back to the Metroplex, Denton's where I grew up mostly. But my whole life was, I was going to be an artist. And my mother, going back to school, she ended up coming to TCU and teaching art history. And she taught art history for 27 years, Gale Gear. And through that, I had opportunities to not only, come from the reservation, then go to Europe, to go to every major museum in Europe and see the masters. It's different seeing David on a little, slide, and then David, let me have some, it's like, then Bernini, and then you see Bernini, and you have to go up and, God, is that it? How did he do that in marble? But you take in all that, and I would encourage to invest in all your relations, starting with your ancestors. And I'll tell you a little story a little later on. But I was real lucky to have grandmothers that taught me a lot of stuff, to go back. And if some of y'all know what I'm talking about, like my grandmother, she would tell the weather by the ants, whether they came up, if it was going to rain, or the birds, all this Indian little stuff that I would get all the time. My uncles and father would, I would always hear these stories of, that plant does this, and Andrew Jackson was really like this, and Abraham Lincoln really did this. So when coming through school, I would do my book reports on how bad the people on money were. And so I would end up in the hall, but I got to draw. That's all I did, was draw. So I would encourage, this kind of thing is really cool. Almost every job or every project I ever got is from a friend referring me. Like Jennifer called and said, hey, can you come talk to some people? I thought it was going to be like 4 or 5 people, but, I was like, okay, but that's what you do, and it's like apprenticeships. And I was real lucky when I got out of TCU. I played basketball at TCU, Killer Frogs. So I love it. Recruited Jamie Dixon when he was 17. Coming over, that's the coach of TCU, if you didn't know. But I'm still involved in that whole community. And travel, I would encourage people to travel. And it's like one of my projects, 2005, was the Hopi Prophecies. And German filmmaker Hans Liebing from UCLA, Dr. Hans, I got to remember he's a doctor. We went out and I tried to find all the elders, like 85 and older, talk to them about stuff, what to tell my sons for the future and all this. It's incredible. I mean, I have it all in video. But that kind of connection that you can learn, living history, oral history, and that's what I got my whole life, was having contact like this. My uncles would take me into a tribal meeting, or maybe we were camping at Navajo Lake, and this old guy would come up and start telling these stories, and it's, just like magic. Campfire story, little kid, remember it ever. So that's been an inspiration for my work always. And I always try to pick projects that is something I like to do, because if you're joyful in what you like to do, then it's effortless, energy. And more about investment, when this body, starts wearing out and stuff, when you're young and athletic and you think you're immortal and skiing without turns straight down the hill, listening to Born to Run and thinking, you can fly, and then things happen. At the end of that, when the body breaks down, it's just, how many beautiful memories did you make? Were you able to stay in the moment, and do you use this incredible imagination for tomorrow, make it exciting? Like when you're a little kid, I try to stay in little Johnny, go in the backyard, tigers, it's like, just look for the day. And I try to, every day I try to go, like yesterday, it was so pretty. I sat there with barefoot on the grass, and your feet grounded and all that negative energy. And I was listening to the birds, and I watched a redbud open. It's like, spring. But you do that kind of thing, and you get bliss. You get, joy, just be in the moment. Like today's going to be beautiful. It's like, to me, it's the first day of spring, and I'm going to bring all my plants out of my studio so I have some wall space. But for everybody in here, connections, meeting people, talking to people. Somebody from this room will refer you, and that's how you get things done. And I'll tell you, an event that happened to me, it's been a year and a half now, but being a big TCU fan and community, all of our family for 50 years, my grandmother would get all her 7 kids, would come to her, had a little bitty house, and then we started having this family reunion, blew up as the family got bigger, and we still do. Every summer in July, we have a big Pate family powwow at the Robbers Caves in southeastern Oklahoma. It's near Wilburton, Oklahoma, just down from Tuscoma, if you know where that is. But it's up in the hills, and it's like a stronghold. But we've about 75 to 150 of my relatives that I know my first cousin. I have 42 first cousins. And I know them, and I know their second cousins, and I know their kids, and I know their babies. And having that extended family, when you start making these extended families or expanding your tribe or your, people that you can depend on, and just, just spread the love. It's like when I see my friends, it's great joy. It's like hugs, I just saw you yesterday, but still, it feels great when you have friends and you develop these relationships. And like she was saying, it's not about money. I was never really motivated by money. I have friends that are multi-millionaires, and I play with their stuff, and they invite me to their house, and it's fun. But, by getting to know people, they invite you in, and you get to experience more than just being an artist. You live it. And you got to have a lot of courage to do that, because it's feast and famine, especially when you're a freelance guy like me. And I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. No, I couldn't do that. I'll do that, And it's usually things that I would like to do. And and seeking and exploring and be adventurous. I've had a fantastic life. It's just incredible, the things I got to do. I went to the top of the pyramids when you could. But you get there and they have rocks the size of this room and they're up, 200 feet. And you're like, nah, and you feel so insignificant. But then not really, because if I got there, I got to see it, went down the Nile. And that was all because of my mother. And the art history thing, she invested in me. Like if you have children, you'll invest in them. And hopefully later on, you'll take care of them later on, and I did. That's what she tricked me into. Now I have a lake house right next to her, She just turned 80 and, we watch sunsets and like tomorrow I'll be at the lake fishing. If it would have been this nice 2 days ago, I probably wouldn't be here today. I'd be fishing. And that's, there's no comparison to being in touch with nature. And I would advise everybody to get in touch with nature. Or go on a hike, go look at the stars, go get the free stuff, watch the moon. I would tell you, I'm compelled by my answers to tell you this joke. Did you hear about the Indian that drank too much tea? No. He drowned it almost in his teepee. How about that Native American orgy? Did y'all hear about that one? It was intense. Okay, those are two jokes I've heard like 65,000 times. And they get funnier every time. And see, that's my uncles that all had a sense of humor. And it was about 5 years ago, and I was thinking, man, this is what heaven's like, And see all your loved ones, both sides, just talking trash and not paying attention and intimidate. Everybody picks a team. And since I'm the commissioner of the horseshoes, I usually get the best team. I switch it around, but I'm now the 2-time champion since I became commissioner. And so I'm going to tell you about a story that about a year and a half ago. I was involved with TCU to get the alumni to come back. It's like a big family reunion. So we had it before. 2 years ago would have been the 4th year, and we have an alumni game and a draft and play Top Golf. And it's about, community and building networks. And, it works for me, all my connections with TCU and all that kind of thing. And so we have this alumni game, and I played for the last 3 years and, hit a couple 3-pointers and run off or come off the bench and cheat and get kind of things. But this year in 2018, I wasn't going to play, and they had a draft, and somebody didn't show up, and so they cheered me on, and so I said, all right, I'll play. And it was great. 81 former players from the 60s, the 80s, the 90s, all this camaraderie, all these big basketball players on this new court. If you haven't seen the TCU court, it's like painted like scales, and it's really cool. So it was fun to be out there, and so they do their dunking contest and all that, and finally get to go out there and play. And I run out on the court, and man, this is great. I couldn't be happier. I shoot a 3-point, and I think it's going in, but they said it didn't. And I take 3 steps or 4. I was all the way to the other end, and boom, my head, boom, boom, dropped dead. Just sudden coronary. And anyway, luckily they had the right people there. They massaged my heart, got oxygen on me. The guy had the AED. You can read about it in Star Telegram, look it up. It was like a couple years ago, details. I wasn't there. I was gone, I was on the river. Next thing I was in the river and I was like this for a long time, right? And then some other stuff happened. I'm making a graphic novel about that part. But basically, I came up in the river, and I could smell barbecue. And I was like, I was in a basketball game, it was a barbecue. Why am I smelling barbecue? And then all of a sudden these dogs started licking me. And it was all my dogs. And it was cool, man, see all my dogs. And I raised up out of the river, and all my ancestors that I knew personally from the family reunion had these big cane poles with empty hooks, and they all went like this, like there was like 23 of them. And they all had these long cane poles with empty hooks and looking at me. And I was standing there, and I had my jersey split in half. And I was like, Uncle Jackie, Uncle Delbert, Aunt Lahoma, Aunt Levada, all the way down, these cousins and all this. And so I go, man, I better bait their hooks. And so I took my jersey off, and I started catching fish, and I went down, and I made eye contact with every one of them. And it was so, so cool. And I baited all their hooks, and they nobody said anything to me except my grandmother. She goes, well, Judo's here. That was my Indian name when I was a little kid, and that sounded funny. But it means big, handsome river. And, and then, that makes sense. Here I'm in the big, beautiful river with my relatives, and she goes, let's get Johnny some berries. And then, I finished baiting everybody's hook. And this is like a vivid, I could smell, I could taste temperature. And I remember being in the water, I could feel prayers like beams of light. And it kept me warm in this cold water. And it would hit me in my feet and my hands. And then I would hear who it was. I could tell. And at this game, I guess there were like 300 plus people. And they instantly started praying. I'm not even, that religious. And I had friends that were not. And they said, I never prayed so hard in my life. But that to have focused energy and thought positive, that stuff's strong. There I was in the river baiting my ancestors, and my cousin, I saw my dad, and I haven't seen most of these people. I saw my uncle like 4 years ago. My dad I haven't seen in 30 years, my grandmother in 40 years. And my grandmother brought a big basket of berries over to me, all kinds of berries. And she goes, Johnny, eat berries. So I started eating berries, and I could taste them. It was so good. And I looked down in the water, and I could see everybody. And my cousin said to my dad, does he want to come with us to hunt wendigos and skinwalkers? And my dad turned to me and winked, and he said, no, I think he wants to be a grandfather. And then my uncle, Jack, he goes, well, we're going to sure miss Johnny. He's a masturbator. And I was like, what? And I was like, oh, everybody's laughing. And I just started eating a bunch of berries, and Grandma just pat me on my back. And anyway, after that, and I looked down the river, and I saw all my family and friends, and they were crying and praying. So I just dove back in the river. And everything coming at me would light up. And then I realized I was light. And I could speed up. And I sped up. And I don't know how long I was going, but it was a long time. And then I came up to like a cenote way up high, like a well, like you were looking up a well. And so I just kind of drifted, floated up. And I came up, and it was like a sloshing, you've seen those earthquakes, swimming pools, and it was doing that. And I was on top of a mesa in New Mexico, like a village on the, like a coma or somewhere like that. But it was all the neighborhood kids, like 4 to 5 to 6 there. And it was an earthquake. And I looked down into this valley in New Mexico. I was like, was that a dream? What was that? I thought I woke up. Because these kids, I know my neighborhood kids, because I go eat pecans under my longhorn out in front of my yard with these kids. And so they were there. It seemed real. And then I saw 7 giants. 100-foot giants. It's like running up the hill, and it was so real. And then a little bow and arrow appeared, and there were 6 arrows, and there were 7 giants, and there were these kids. So I was like, well, they're coming after us. What are these giants, you know? And what am I going to do? I got these little arrows. So I go, spread out, kids, and talk some trash. And so they, you know, and they're pretty good little kids, but they were talking some trash, you know, some giants. I mean, eyeball like this big. So I always had the advice from my father, always, you know, take the biggest guy, the guy you think's going to be the roughest, and take him out first, and then the other ones fold. So that was my strategy with my little arrow. And so I waited till these giants got close. I mean, we were rocking on top of this thing, and I saw that big eyeball come up, and I went back to pull to shoot it in the eye. And they all took a knee. These giants took a knee, and they started praying or something, you know, like they would on a basketball court if somebody get hurt. But, and then Carolyn, she's 9 now, 7 then, she turned around with her hands on her hip, looking at me. She was telling the other kids, there's about 8 great nephews and the neighborhood kids. She goes, I told you Johnny wasn't scared of giants. And then I woke up and I was in the hospital. I had a triple bypass, you know, they took artery out of there and do it like this. And I don't know how they glue it, they stitch it, whatever. But when I was laying there recovering, all my life, you know, just waves. So lucky to be able to do what I've done. And, you know, being an artist, it can be all kinds of different things. It's a life. And I wouldn't trade my friends, my relations for anything. But I'm happy Jennifer, you know, invited me here to talk to you guys. And I would say, be creative, love what you're doing. And the more joy you do, the more energy you'll have. And, you know, make beautiful memories, stay in the moment, and use that incredible, you know, imagination to make every day like an adventure. And it is. You just don't know. Live like you don't know what's going to happen 2 days from now. Because you don't know. I didn't know. I was running down the court, boop. But, you know, fortunately, I had teamwork, and I had people around me. And if that would have happened to me at the lake, you know, if I was on the roof I didn't have any idea that I had 3 arteries clogged. So I would say invest in your health, in your well-being, and the happier you are, even if you're ill, if you're happy, you're well. And that's about, you know, if you have any questions, you know, I would just say, it's so lucky to be an artist and to be in America and to have the heritage that I have and the ancestors. So, you know, I would say go back. If you have a grandmother, you have an older aunt, find out who you are, where you came from, all your stuff. It's good to know, you know, who's going to be there. And be good to your dogs and cats and stuff because you'll need them later on, I promise. And, you know, I talk to my dog every day. Usually, I don't talk to people. I mean, I work from home, so I'm talking to a fat cat, you know, a stray black cat, and my dog that doesn't like anybody but 4 people. But I'm talking to him, and, you know, I love my life. It's great. I mean, I wouldn't want to be anybody else but me. And, you know, every project you take, if you can make joy out of it, it makes it so much easier, and time flies when you're having fun. And so, you know, enjoy your lives. Enjoy being an artist, and thank you for inviting me.
Johnny, yo soy mestiza latina, and in our heritage, in our heritage, we have something called milagros. So this is from a very small token of our appreciation. These are milagros from my personal collection that symbolize our wishes and prayers for you.
Oh, thank you.
us about your involvement with the Boulevard.
Oh yeah, the Boulevard. Have y'all seen those fiberglass Longhorns somewhere in Fort Worth? They're kind of big Longhorns. I don't know if is it up on the site?
No, it's on the side, yeah.
Well, in 90-something, my mother went over to Switzerland, and they had these little bulls, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that was getting real popular. And for the boulevards, it was to bring awareness to the arts and music in Fort Worth ISD. At the time, I think there were like 3 art teachers for 400 schools. And so I sculpted this big Longhorn out of styrofoam in my back studio. And by the time I got done, it was so big, I had to cut out the wall to get it out. And I had a foot of styrofoam, in there. It was really cool. And then I made a mold of it, and we put it out, reproduced them, and different artists would paint them, and we'd have sponsors, and people would come sponsor that, and it would bring awareness. That was the plan. But the first month that it started, I was talking to a friend that's where one of the bulls was at, and this woman walks in, and I started talking to her about that. And I didn't know she was from National Geographic. And they did a whole spread on Fort Worth and the Longhorn, and within 6 months, there was an art teacher in every school, because of the city and the competing elements that wanted to shine. And that's, Fort Worth, man, what a great city. My sons live in Austin, and it's cool. I mean, it's cool, but everybody knows about it. It's so crowded. And Fort Worth is just as cool, but getting better. I mean, I love it here. I mean, I moved here 40 years ago when I came to TCU. I never left. I guess I did leave, but it was kind of the jumping off point. But Boulevards, it made a lot of, after 9/11, I had this Longhorn. This is September the 12th. I had this Longhorn with American flag on it. And I took it around to the schools in my neighborhood. There's like Lily B, and down the hill, there's another little school. And I had it on a trailer. And I just pulled up in the school because everybody was especially the teachers, they were in shock. I mean, but the kids weren't. I mean, I pulled up in this bull, and they busted out like folk songs. Oh, the blue bull. They were making up stuff. It was great. And the funny thing is, they started lining up and laying down and looking up underneath where the bull is. The city made me cut the balls off, so I kind of shaped it off. But it does look like a profile of a man. But some kid said, "Look, it's Abraham Lincoln." And they all took turns laying underneath it. And it was like a line. It was like, and these teachers, 9/11, I can't believe it. But these kids, Abraham Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln. It was great. I mean, I like having a bull on the trailer pulling around because it's like instant parade wherever I go. I mean, I just pull up the gas station and come back out. There are like 5 people taking pictures, and you drive down the highway. There's people pulling up, taking turns, the next car pull up. That Boulevard project was fun. I met a lot of people, networked a lot of people. And, that's really what it is, building relationships and networking. And the fact that you're doing what you love, that's why you're here, And the more you love something, then it's not work. I mean, it's not, you work your ass off for nothing because you want to, because you love it. I do. I mean, I don't care. And I, gardening, do that too. Any other kind of question? Go Frogs, beat Baylor. That'd be great.
Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you.